NASCAR giveth and taketh away when it comes to a penalty. Kevin Harvick says he may not retire. And is Hendrick Motorsports the most unstoppable force in NASCAR? And are they already the championship team to beat? All that and more next on Stuck in the Catch Fence. Hello, everyone. Welcome in. This is Stuck at the Catch Fence. My name is Ryan Pierce. I'm with Joe Spillman. This is the weekly show. We are headed to Sweet Home, Alabama. We go from the paperclip to the largest track on the circuit. The quick question, Joe, what is the most memorable wreck that you can think of from Talladega?
Oh, man. Ryan, there have been so many wrecks, but I'm telling you right now, I'm refusing. And I told you I was going to have this attitude with you tonight. I'm refusing to start the show until I see a green flag waving.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, man, there's been a lot of memorable wrecks. I can't even really pinpoint one. There's a couple up on our YouTube channel right now. I would say man, that's a hard question. I'm gonna pass. Hard pass. There's Joey Logano flipping on his hood a couple of years ago. There's so many great wrecks at you say great wrecks. There's so many great wrecks at Talladega. You can't just pick one.
Yeah,
What's
I
yours?
think what we have, Joe, is we've had some great wrecks because thankfully a lot of people haven't been hurt with these crazy wrecks at Talladega. I think Rusty Wallace comes to mind, like you mentioned, Joey Logano. We have one of Tony Stewart having a wreck there. My most memorable wreck was when Elliott Sadler was driving the number 36 M&Ms. It was 36 or 38 now that we're on air. I'll probably one of the two, either way. And he spun like a top on his nose going into turn 3. And it just seemed like he flipped over forever, but safely came out of the vehicle. I have no idea why that was so memorable that day. I just remember as a kid going, there's no way that guy walks out of there alive. And Joe, you would have thought that he just got done sleeping on a certain mattress because no bruises, no bumps, no scrapes, no nothing. And, I just went, I guess that has changed a lot when it comes to safety in these NASCARs.
Yeah, well, and a lot of the wrecks you see at Talladega, and I'm not an engineer by any means, but it seems like, you see a lot of hard wrecks into the wall, but it seems like the force of the wreck is always distributed back down into the infield. And a lot of tracks you don't see that. Like, if you check out that short that we have of Joey Logano flipping over, I believe that was 2020 or 2021, where he he came into, I believe it was turn 1, hit the wall, flipped over, and it was almost like the momentum of that wreck took him down into the infield. It took him kind of to safety. A pretty incredible wreck. The car did its job, but when you look at a lot of the wrecks at Talladega where people are bumped from behind, they ended up in the wall, they always seem to get pushed down, unlike other tracks where it kind of seems like they ride the wall and all that force is just distributed between them and the wall. So I don't know what it is in the makeup of that track, but and not trying to jinx any driver, but it seems like most of the wrecks there turn out to be okay on the driver. You're absolutely right, which is incredible when you're talking about 200-mile-an-hour speeds. So
my favorite wreck of all time was a challenge on NASCAR 03 or 04, and it was the Kodak car, and you had to go through, quote, the big one. And if I was more prepared and this was a professional broadcast, I'd tell you all the details of it. I just know all hell broke loose in front of you, and you couldn't get your car at all scraped because of what happened in real life. And that was my favorite one, the lightning challenge, to continue to do over and over and over again, because it's like, all right, I'm just driving on the back straight. Just all hell breaks loose. And that might have been the last time NASCAR made a good NASCAR video game, which was 2003 and 2004. So
yeah, got some catching up to do there.
Yeah, and we actually had a video. Myself had a video on the death of NASCAR Gaming and Motorsports, who owns the exclusive license. CEO stepped down today. So there's some foreshadowing that I told you that company would be going under soon. And while they're on their way of taking the first steps. But Joe, let's go ahead and get into the news. It was kind of a slow news week from Sunday to where we are today, whenever you're listening to this show here on Thursday. The biggest news that I could see really when it came to two different types of penalties, Austin Dillon received a L1 penalty, which is a loss of 60 points, 5 playoff points, and $75,000. They were using the incorrect hardware on the mounting assembly under the wing. And again, Joe, we do not get any type of car or any type of notice or any type of anything, what the hell that even means. So obviously it really made Austin Dillon fast this past weekend at Martinsville.
That illegal underwing assembly really gave him a competitive edge this weekend in his 20-something position finish.
Yeah, I actually heard that they use Loctite, and you're not allowed to use that.
No, you can use the blue Loctite. You can't use the red Loctite.
Oh, really? It's like a turf war, like Crips and Bloods.
Yeah.
Wow.
You use the blue Loctite, not the red Loctite. You use the red Loctite in NASCAR, you get a 60-point penalty.
I thought that took place once we went to Chicago so that none of the cars would get shot at, but I guess they're trying to, get this out of their system early.
No, you're allowed to use 9mm in Chicago, not 40 caliber. Those are the rules.
Oh boy, that'll be a fun July 4th weekend. The other news, and this is kind of a surprise, but I think NASCAR did the right thing. Colleague Racing had their points reinstated, and what the NASCAR official statement is that they thought it was unfair for Hendrick to have broken the same rule, but a different appeals panel kept the ruling for Colleague, but changed the ruling for Hendrick. So NASCAR, in the sake of fairness, said that they are going to receive their points back, which is a huge deal. That will make a ginormous change. As you and I, Joe, laughed at one point where Justin Haley was actually negative 40 points at one point during the season. So he gains 100 points back. But I think this is the right move. I know NASCAR probably did not want to swallow their pride and do this, but at the end of the day, it sounds like they identically broke the rule for the same part. And NASCAR said, you know what? We don't like the rule. We've even talked about it on the show before. We're going to change the rules. But in the sake of fairness, if you're going to break the same rule, you deserve the same punishment. So they gave them the lesser of the punishments, which was that of Hendrick Motorsports.
Okay. So I'm going to differ from your belief a little bit. I don't disagree that there shouldn't have been a penalty in the first place, but this goes back to the all or nothing. And in society and the way the world works, you and I could commit the same crime. We could commit the same infraction on society and have two different people or two different sets of jurors judging us when we have our day in court, just like this situation. And one juror body might say, "Nah, we don't like this," and the other juror body might say, "You're guilty." At the end of the day, Colleague Racing was found guilty of their infraction, and they were fined their points. I don't think NASCAR as a body should come out and say, "Nah, we're going to give you back your points." We're either going to follow rules in NASCAR or we're not going to follow rules. And we need to decide right now what we're going to do. Not, hey, he got his a lesser penalty. They were easier on them, so let's do the same thing for this team. Not saying that Colleague Racing was wrong in the first place. I'm not saying that at all. I like the fact that they got their points back. I just think that we're either going to follow a rule book in NASCAR or we're not going to follow a rule book. We're either going to have an appeals panel or we're not. What's the point of having an appeals panel and deciding the fate of these teams if NASCAR at the end of the day can go, we're not going to uphold what they decided. So, and not to mention, you shouldn't be making these decisions in the middle of the season, in my opinion. You want to change things at the end of the season and dictate who has the overall say when it comes to infractions, that's fine. Stop making rules up as you go. That's my opinion on that. I'm not trying to sound too angry about it, but it does kind of anger me a little bit because
I'm angry.
I am angry. But at the end of the day, here's where I'm at. The appeals panel.
House.
Yeah, I am.
Oh, sorry.
But the appeals panel was gracious to Hendrick Motorsports. They were not gracious to Colleague Racing. That's how it should have stood. NASCAR should not interject just because they don't like the outcomes.
The only reason why I differ from you, Joe, I think on the surface I completely agree, is that the appeals panel threw out NASCAR's rule book in the first place whenever they decided to change the rules and say, no, we're going to change the penalty. And I think NASCAR then was given the precedent this one time to say, okay, well, it's not fair if they threw out the rules for Hendrick, but not threw out the rules for you. And there were different appeals panels. So I think that needs to be said if you're just now new on the topic. So I think the rules committee or the appeals committee was the one that initially threw the rule book out, and then NASCAR made a new rule saying, hey, don't throw our rule book out because for the sake of being consistent, this is going to look really bad. And I think they try to do two wrongs to make a right, if that's the right way to put it. And I think that's why they did it. I don't think they wanted to. I think if it was up to NASCAR, they would have just both had the L2 penalties, and whatever they got penalized for would have been the same. Maybe they could have dropped it from the 100 points to the 75 points. But because the appeals penalty took it upon themselves to alter the penalty, not judge whether they were guilty or not guilty, it kind of forced NASCAR's hands from a fairness as a sanctioning body to do something. But on the surface, Joe, I'm with you 100%. I just feel like if this was a cause and effect that was initiated by the appeals process, not by NASCAR.
No, and I don't disagree with your assessment. Obviously we are where we are with it, and we're just going to have to roll with it at this point. I mean, really, us as fans, having a YouTube channel because we love NASCAR. As a fan, we don't have to agree on everything NASCAR does, but at the end of the day, you're allowed to have your opinion on this, and if you don't have an opinion, then I think maybe that questions your fandom a little bit, because if you're passionate about this, you're going to have an opinion, I think, and it's okay to differ in opinion on that.
Yeah. So, and we beat this topic to a dead horse because we've talked about it over and over again. But the good news is it didn't change the outcome of a race because all this happened before a race even began. So that is something that doesn't need to worry about being taken back. Then the illegal part was used for the sake of a race, and Hendrick Motorsports won the damn race anyway. So moving on, we now will turn our eyes to the viewership at Martinsville. I think a lot of people were waiting to see if there was a Chase Elliott effect, and in fact there was. Martinsville spring race was up about, I think it said 4% from what it was the previous year. That is a good thing because it's been down about 15%, Joe, and I think that is the ultimate control that you can have in this type of study is, does Chase Elliott have that big of effect when it comes to the viewership in NASCAR? And I think the answer is a resounding yes.
Yeah, there's no question. And when we talked about this topic previously, I think I said something to the effect of, possibly the he holds probably more than 15% of the fandom in the sport, right? So I think obviously we saw a steep decline in ratings when he was out for 6 races, and the Chase Elliott effect is very real when it comes to NASCAR, and I think NASCAR is probably glad that he's back, to say the least.
Yeah, I think that they were probably ecstatic seeing what they were having on viewership. Now, everything that's fallen out from all of their drivers and Dale Earnhardt Jr. talking about the rules package when it comes to short track maybe made that celebration very quick, maybe one popper and a couple kazoos, and then it was back to being criticizing. Do you not have poppers and kazoos at your birthday party?
I don't know. I'd never had a birthday party. No.
No? Maybe
I've never had a birthday party.
I'm sorry, Joe. I didn't know this was like this. This is a bad subject.
Yeah.
I knew that. I knew that. I went there anyway to see if you've broken through that barrier, and I apologize because you clearly have not. And
I'm never.
That's on me.
Over it. I'm never going to get over it.
Have you thought about going to Dr. Phil before he retires?
They declined my story.
Joe, when it comes to having a birthday party, I can lead a horse to
Right.
water, but that doesn't mean he knows how to play poker.
Well, I figured if I ever go on Dr. Phil, I've learned the strategy of Dr. Phil. You just blame your parents for everything.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
actually going to wear a skirt with nothing underneath, and then
Right.
uh, kind of give it the old 1-2, and
That and
see
I
what he
think
thinks
that's
about
a good
that.
strategy on Dr. Phil, not to get off topic, but I mean, why wouldn't you go on a nationally televised show and blame your parents that kept a roof over your head and food in your belly your entire
Yeah,
life and blame them for everything that all your misfortunes?
yeah. No,
Yeah.
I agree. They're the reason why I went from Ryan to Rihanna. But that being said, that's a different topic for a different day. So no, NASCAR has to be ecstatic that Chase Elliott is back into the car, and I'm sure Chase Elliott is excited too because he had a top 10 finish when it was a horrible, horrible day. You mentioned qualifying. He was
Terrible.
doing his best Ross Chastain impersonation without moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So that was not good, but I think it's an easy resounding. He might be the favorite this week after the showing that we had last week, and we'll
Maybe.
get back to Hendrick here in a little bit. That being said, if you've stuck with us and tuning in, we appreciate it. Number one. Number two, if you would like to, you can massage the subscribe button,
Just tickle.
caress it, if you will. You
Just
can tickle it.
just
You
tickle.
can you can you can foreplay with the subscribe button and the like button if you would like, if
You could
you feel
even
so inclined.
you could hit that subscribe button, then hit it again, and then hit it again. It really
That
likes that.
sounds dangerous. That sounds dangerous. I feel like we're going to have a technicality where they won't be subscribed if they do that.
No, you'll subscribe, unsubscribe, and then resubscribe.
Yeah, they'll forget. That's a lot of instructions. Zoomers, I mean, they don't pay attention for like 3 minutes, let alone
well,
trying to do three
well,
steps.
I've becoming very familiar with the YouTube analytics, and I've learned a couple things here, Ryan. I've learned
Yeah,
one, YouTube hates our shorts that we put out,
that's
and
true.
I also learned too that I don't think that we even have to care about the Zoomers because they like aren't watching us at all. So
Yeah, yeah, you got a point.
yeah,
We're we're
we're too
we're
old for them.
we're boomer and proud. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, we're too
I
old for them.
also I also wanted to announce that we will be having a giveaway. We are right at 300 subscribers, and
Ooh,
if you in NASCAR love to collect different things, well, it won't be this one. This one's mine.
oh, oh,
But let me know your driver. This one is signed because I'm a bad A. Let me know your driver. And if you win, I'll get you a 1x24. Any of the ones you want for your driver. All you have to do is like and subscribe. And then in the comments section, tell me your driver. From now until we get to 500, I will do the painstaking work of count every single entry that you have in the comments to make sure that you are eligible. And then we will run the giveaway once we get to 500 subscribers. So if you would love to win a free diecast car, a 1x24 car of the driver of your choice, like and subscribe to the channel. Let us know who your favorite driver is, and you will be entered to win, and we will run that giveaway at 500 subscribers. Joe, why do you look upset? Because you're not
why
eligible?
am I not? That's my question. I'm sitting here wondering if
No.
I'm eligible. I'm not.
You could comment, and I might do it, but I won't tell you that I didn't run yours.
This is bullshit.
Well, it kind of is bullshit, but life moves on. So if you want a free car, all you have to do is fornicate with the subscribe button. Moving on, Kevin Harvick says that he may stay in NASCAR, Joe, under one condition. What is that one condition?
By God, if you put 1,000 horsepower back into these things on short track, he's not retiring.
So Kevin Harvick will retire at the end of the year. No, what would be interesting, Joe, and I would love this, and we talked about this on the post race show, if NASCAR actually forced his hand to get to 1,000 horsepower. Now, I want to tie this into the next subject as well, so we'll make this together. We'll we'll come together. Sorry, trying to reach out to a different community. Will come together when it comes to now. NASCAR also announced by 2035 that they will have net zero emissions, which most people took that NASCAR will have electric cars. They did not say that. They did say that they were going to put in charging stations because there is a ton of people out there with things that need to be charged. Zero. Because I was just there.
Yeah.
And then by 2028, they will add a different type of fuel, from my understanding, kind of like what Formula One and IndyCar are doing right now, a renewable resource type of fuel, biodegradable fuel. I don't know, some green fuel that everybody's been clamoring for. I'm sure they just can't wait to get it done. But my question to you, Joe, is let's not talk about NASCAR going from what we have now to all electric. If NASCAR could get to 1,000 horsepower using hybrid engines, you like IndyCar, you watch Formula One, would you accept NASCAR if they said we can give you 1,000 horsepower, but it will have to be with a hybrid engine?
Look, they're part of NASCAR, specifically stock car racing, is one of the reasons why, and I think you have to take a bigger look at this, and you might be surprised by my answer. One of the reasons why we have incredible car safety, so to speak. I mean, granted, you wreck your minivan into a concrete wall at 130 miles an hour, it's probably going to turn out pretty bad for you. But the advancement in car safety that we've had over the last 50 to 60 years, a large contributor of that has been stock car racing and the advancements that they've made there. And stock car racing and the advancement of the automobile go hand in hand. That is one of the biggest grassroots draw to a stock car racing. And if that is where we as a society move to, and this is a big, broad discussion that we could have all day, when you're talking about the EV trucks that are being developed that are way over touted. I don't think people realize the large amount of energy that goes into electric semi trucks and the power draw that is actually more expensive than just putting diesel in those things, and a bigger harm on society. And batteries and like I said, hybrid batteries, electric car batteries that are actually more harmful on the environment than putting gasoline in your car. It actually takes you, in case you didn't know this, it actually takes you as a consumer, if you buy a Tesla or any other electric car, which, by the way, Elon Musk will tell you that the electric car is not to save the environment. That wasn't ever the goal behind it. But if you think that you're saving the environment,
he also says that AI is going to kill us.
Yeah, and he's probably right.
I believe him.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, you have to drive the same electric car for 7 years to have any impact on the environment over a gasoline fueled car. 7 years. The batteries in a totally electric car only last about 5.5 years. So explain that one to me. You are not doing anything for the environment. But as a society, we are moving that way because as human beings, we say we have to feel good about ourselves and we have to say that we're doing something. So we fix things until they're broken. And if NASCAR does that, because that's where society has moved to, I think that's the progression of a stock car. Because that is, like I said, stock car racing, automobile advancement go hand in hand. I will tell you that the idea of going totally electric, which, like you said, NASCAR didn't say that. I don't want to say that they're doing that, but it sounds an awful lot like that's what they're talking about. You're going to have a whole lot less race fans because at the end of the day, that won't be NASCAR and that won't be stock car racing. The Formula series already has that. It's the Formula E series, and those cars last about, I think, 45 minutes is the race length there. So yeah, that's what you're looking at, about a 45-minute race length, unless you're going to change out an entire battery, because the amount of energy that you're going to have to spend in an electric battery to race 400 miles, you're not going to be able to do that on one battery. They don't have a Tesla right now that can go 400 miles. I don't believe.
No, and the thing is, we need NASCARs to last longer than adolescents do on prom night.
Right.
And that is not where we're at right now when it comes to electric vehicles. That being said, if we were to move to a type of hybrid and it still sounds and resembles what we do have as a sport, I'm okay. And Joe, I was going to show you this because I'm not sure if you have seen it yet.
No, let's have it.
So a lot of people were comparing this vehicle, this Cadillac. Can you see it?
I can.
All right, I'm going to play it and tell me what you think.
I mean, that is what series is that? That's one of the racing series anyway.
That is an LMDH, and they are talking about that for Cup cars. If it sounds like that when I go to the track, I'm cool. Because as silly as that sounds, like figuratively and literally, that is one of the reasons why I love NASCAR. When you go to the track, the smell, the sound, it lets you know that you're at an auto racing track. And if we can replicate that with a hybrid engine and it's cheaper to get to 1,000 horsepower, I'm all for it. I think that we've talked ad nauseum, on Monday, what NASCAR has to do to get to a better product. And if hybrid engines are the way to do that, and we're still replicating what is stock car racing, because like you said, Joe, it's not like when they were racing in the 40s, people are racing in the 50s and 60s. People are going, God damn it, they should still be racing Model Ts. We advance with what the stock car is. We're not there as electric. Electric is being pushed down your throat because that's what they want you to buy whenever an electric truck can't tow more than 65 miles. So let alone an electric stock car being able to drive. We're not there yet. We're nowhere close to that, but we are getting close to the terms of what we see in hybrid. We see it right now in IndyCar. We see it in Formula One, the possibilities that they have when it comes to the horsepower. And if NASCAR is able to do that, but that being said, Joe, I have to have at least 900 horsepower. That's my concession. I want to have at least 900 horsepower. If you're going to tell me we're going to move to hybrid, and like you mentioned, we're not saving the world by moving to hybrid based upon all the things you talked about. I mean, your charging stations are still being run by coal, just to let you guys know if you're not aware. But if we're not able to get to 900 horsepower, then there's no point in moving to hybrid. I mean, other than the fact that we can pretend we did something.
And we're talking specifically short track racing, and I don't think that they need the same horsepower packages on every track. But there's a reason, and we've talked about this, me and you, and probably on a show in the past. There's a reason why when you go to your local dirt track on Friday and Saturday night, those sprint cars are 900 horsepower. There's a reason for that. You need acceleration on short tracks. You need to be able to shift. And that we don't have that. We don't have that right now in the Cup Series. We have 550 horsepower in Cup cars going around a half a mile track, and it causes the race to be boring. There is no acceleration. There's no braking going into the turns. There's no acceleration going out of the turns, and it makes a track like Martinsville, it makes it hard to pass. They can't pass each other, because you take the driving ability, you take braking, you take shifting, you take everything out of the driver's hands, essentially. And not saying that you and I could step into a next gen car and go out there in Martinsville and even be able to compete. But what you do is you allow drivers that probably aren't top tier drivers to be able to compete. Well, Ryan, you may be. I know you have some practice.
I've been practicing on iRacing, dude.
Yeah, you may be able to do it. I couldn't do it. I'd probably end up in the wall pretty quickly.
Am I saying could I? Yes. So are you
going to get a chance? No.
Would I win? Who would beat me?
Yeah, I mean, who could call it, really?
Yeah, I'm unrealized and untapped talent just sitting here in Southeast Indiana.
I overstepped a little bit. I'll just when it comes to me, I could not do it probably and compete. But when you're talking about professional race car drivers, you talk about an even playing field at Martinsville and these short tracks. That's exactly what you're doing. You're essentially making the car take over. You're taking the drivers out of the scenario, and I think that's what we saw. Your pit strategy, your race strategy, like we saw with Joey Logano, comes into play, which is a part of NASCAR as well. But at a short track, you want to see the short track racers win. You want to see the short track drivers and the people that have the ability to do that better than a JJ Yeley go out there and be able to compete. Now, all this kind of seems counterintuitive because Kyle Larson, one of the best short track dirt track racers in the country, if not the best, won at Martinsville, but it wasn't because of his driving ability. I think it's pretty safe to say that.
Yeah, and you want the difference, or you want that fine line in the Cup Series to be fast and out of control. I mean, there has to be a fine line of what that is, and both driver and team are trying to find what that is. If we do too much, we can't drive it. If we do it just right, we're going to be really fast. And right now, that gap is way wide. I mean, that gap is like really, really, really wide. Like you're saying, Joe, you can make plenty of mistakes, and with bigger brakes, you don't have to worry about it. If you miss your line, you can downshift, and it just throw you in exactly where you need to be. So there's different things that they can do. But again, if you want to catch our entire segment on what we think NASCAR can do, you can tune into that. It was on Monday. We talked about it before. All the other drivers, even Dale Earnhardt Jr., Eric Estep, who we really, really like, we talked all about those different things that they could do. And we have that for you on Monday. But Joe, the last segment I want to talk to you about before we get into the Talladega preview is I'm ready to declare Hendrick the team to beat. I don't think anybody's stopping them. Every single race, even when they're not good, they find a way to get to victory lane. Is it too soon to just go ahead and hand the trophy to Hendrick? Because I look at it this way. They weren't fast at Martinsville. They've already got the only two drivers with multiple wins are William Byron and Kyle Larson. Chase Elliott comes in as been sitting on the couch for 6 weeks, finds a way to get in 10th place. I just think everything in Hendrick Motorsports, besides getting penalized, has been clicking for them right now, that I just don't see another team consistently able to put out a product every single week to stop them. I think Hendrick Motorsports should right now have negative minus odds to win the championship. I don't care what of the four drivers it is. I just don't see anybody in NASCAR willing to remotely close come to competing with Hendrick at this point.
I feel incredibly disrespected. You're telling me right now, 9 races into the season, you're already counting out Rick Ware Racing? Is that what you're telling me?
No, I counted them out before we got to Busch Light Clash.
Okay. Yeah, I can't really disagree with that, other than, I thought that they performed very well last year. I thought we saw the emergence of 2311.
Need to go check the door. Is that we good?
Wow.
It's not a DEFCON 2 situation here.
The emergence of I almost said Rick Ware Racing again. 2311 and other teams like that. I have a mini stroke every time we get on YouTube to do a show. It's like,
that's all right.
My whole day is okay, and then I sit down in front of a camera and I start having strokes one after another, and I can't talk.
Yeah.
But we saw them last year in the postseason, right? They started developing problems late, and I don't want to say right now. I mean, I definitely think every one of their drivers will be in the playoffs. Don't count me, or don't get me wrong on that. I think every one of the Hendrick drivers will be in the playoffs and be in the playoffs very safely, including Chase Elliott, and I think he does that with 2 wins. But where I'm at right now is it's still a long season, and the playoffs are a long playoffs. And we saw Kyle Larson have problems in the playoffs. So we saw Elliott have problems in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, I don't want to say 9 races into the season. I think they're definitely the team to beat. And I don't disagree with maybe they should have minus odds, but I'm not going to count out some of these other teams. I'm not even a fan of Joey Logano, but you never count that guy out of anything.
So who would be the second favorite team right now? Like if it was up to you, who would be the second team in your mind that has the best odds to win the championship? Because I don't know. I have no idea.
No, I think you have Hendrick, which is on a tier right. I feel like I got something in mind now. It came along with the
I
stroke.
might be having a stroke.
I might.
That's why I take Viagra.
Really gets that blood flowing.
Yeah, and I can pretend you to stick shift and it's not sequential. No.
Oh my god.
If you like this type of comedy, like and subscribe. Will we talk about more boner jokes later in the season?
Yeah, tickle that subscribe button.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a naughty
foreplay with the subscribe button.
Anyway,
I think blood flow too. Go ahead, Joe. Sorry, I gave you a mouthful.
Yeah. Oh, good Lord. I don't know if I can continue here. Hendrick, I'm going to get back to the show, Ryan. I don't care what you do to try to stop me. Hendrick is on a tier right now all by itself. And then I think that you have 2 or 3 teams kind of shoulders below them, that could possibly make a run at the playoffs. But no, you're absolutely right. Right now, they're the team to beat. And if I was a Vegas odds maker, odds compiler right now, I probably would be giving them about minus 120 to win it all as a team, or at least one of their drivers.
Who's team 2?
Man, I don't want to answer that. I don't want to put it,
Joe. It's for the show.
Well, I feel you might hate this, but I feel like Hendrick could probably make a run at this year. They get their problems that they have on short tracks down, especially the second round of them. They've been competitive everywhere else. I mean, even Bristol Dirt, which Kyle Busch got into some trouble, but I mean, Austin Dillon was competitive on Bristol Dirt. Of course, that is.
You say RCR because you said Hendrick, so you mean RCR?
What did I? It's part of that stroke. Yeah, RCR. Okay. Obviously, I wouldn't say Hendrick is also the next best team. So
I didn't know. I thought you were going to go clean sweep of the final 4. That'd be intense.
Yeah. So Childress, RCR, I feel like that they could get their act together, and I think that they're going to be competitive down the stretch. Man, I'm not going to throw out 2311, even though, I think that they have one quality driver that could get them there, especially if he really. Tyler Reddick is going to be a force to be reckoned with for years to come, and I think he's a championship caliber driver. So, and I think at the end of the day, I mean, as much as I dislike Denny Hamlin, as much as I dislike Truex, I like Christopher Bell. And at some point, Gibbs is going to get there. I mean, JGR is always going to be in the hunt as well. And, you can't ever discount Hamlin or really Truex to make a run at anything. I don't think. I mean, Hamlin could get on a roll and win 3 of the next, 8 races. You never know with that guy. That's how he got in the playoffs last year. So,
right. I just think I think there's literally a possibility. Was it 2019 when there was 3 Joe Gibbs Racing and then Kevin Harvick? I think was 2019. I think it was Denny Hamlin, Mark Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, and then Kevin Harvick. I think we're probably going to have that situation. Obviously, if I was going to be the betting man, it would be Alex Bowman out, but he's actually been the most consistent. So, and that's only because Chase Elliott hasn't drove. The only thing that I could see happening is exactly what you mentioned in the second half. Chase Elliott had to win at Talladega because he was horrific when it came to the playoffs, but because he was the regular season champion, he ended up finding himself able to advance because of the allocation of points. The only person, and I'll stay to this, and it's not just because he's number 1 in points, is I think it would be JGR and Christopher Bell, and I think it only would be Christopher Bell. That would be my number 2 because I think that he's good enough. I think I mentioned it multiple times now that Christopher Bell is breaking out to be a superstar. And that JGR needs to have more than 2 T-shirts of him in his hauler, for God's sakes. I mean,
right?
Come on.
I wouldn't wear that stupid Toyota shit anyway. But Come on.
Yeah, I mean, lo and behold, that Toyotas are made more in the United States than Ford, but
No, I don't
that's
want
a
to hear. I don't
talk
want to
for a
hear.
different day.
Yeah, yeah.
With your but yeah, I would choose Christopher Bell at this point with JGR, but I put JGR and then the rest of their drivers pretty low. That would be my betting favorite to be number 2, and I think it's a very, very top heavy when it comes to that. So at the end of the day, I would not be surprised at all. I actually would probably bet right now, if you could, to put 3 Rick Hendrick Chevys in the Final Four. That's how strongly I feel about it right now. I just don't think anybody's stopping them. Kyle Busch had the honeymoon phase when it came to his second marriage, and right now we found out that the toilet seat's left open because the short track package is absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a good short track package because you're going to have to do decent, at least somewhat, to get to the Final Four with it having Martinsville and Bristol, and then the final race being at Phoenix, and they were god awful at all 3 of those races. So we shall see. But that being said, Joe, now it's time to move in to Talladega, where we try to predict things when it comes to absolute chaos that comes with super speedway racing. To give a recap, last week I chose Kevin Harvick, Alex Bowman, William Byron, Christopher Bell, and Eric Jones. Joe, would you like to guess what that amount of points netted me on those 5 drivers?
No.
0. Not one single mother effing point. Not 1, 0.
Good job.
You chose Christopher Bell, who was terrible last week. Kyle Busch, who was even worse. Austin Dillon found his way to top 12, but he was not very good. But you nailed it. You said Kyle Larson with 0 wins at Martinsville. That will give you 5 points. And then Martin Truex bounces back late to give you 2 more. So we are now currently sitting at myself with 46 due to my huge dirt track knowledge / win at Bristol and a whole lot of luck with Justin Haley. And you are now at 39, a 7-point difference. Let's go ahead and pull up the NASCAR standings real quick so you know who you can choose when it comes to your picks. And there we go. So we are here. This is the 20 spot with Ty Gibbs. So, Joe, would you, like in golf, because you did better on the last hole, go first, or would you like to give me the floor?
I'll take the honors, Your Honor. That was a Caddyshack reference, but the Zoomers watching wouldn't know that because they've never seen Caddyshack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll share with your caddy. What?
Yeah. 18th hole to got Cinderella story out of nowhere. That's how I'm going to beat you this year. Anyway, you know what? I'm going to just start with it. I don't believe that old Kyle Larson has had a great deal of luck on short tracks, but I think that it's going to be his week this week. Not saying he's going to come out with a win, but I think he's going to.
Joe, we're going to Talladega. You said doesn't have a lot of luck on short tracks.
It's my stroke.
It's the biggest track on the circuit.
I meant super speedways. I'm sorry. I'm having a stroke right now while we're doing a show. But you know what? I'm going to labor through it because that's what I do.
I'm going to give you some 4 hymns.
Yeah. Yeah. Help me tickle that subscribe button. Yeah. Anyway.
What?
Peanut butter. What?
Go before we get canceled.
I'm going to go with Kyle Larson this week. I think he's going to rebound from his terrible performances at most super speedways. I just feel like he's going to make a run at this thing. Not saying he's going to win 5 in a row or 6 in a row, but I think he finishes well this week. I'm also going to take Chase Elliott. Obviously, I think he has a big comeback week. I'm going to go with Joey Logano. I think Joey Logano right there. He's always going to be right there as long as he doesn't have trouble with his car. And I can't stand the guy. He's such, he says the right things. He does a pretty good job broadcasting the Xfinity races. I just hate that guy, man. He's so nice to like fans too. He's so nice. He's terrible. I don't
Thanks
like
for being
Joey.
polite, you prick.
Yeah, what a prick. Did you see how many autographs he's just signed? What a prick.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I'm going to go with Joey Logano. No, I'm not, because that's my fourth driver, right?
No, that's 3. Larson,
Okay.
Elliott, and Logano. I'm going to pray for you when we get done.
Yeah. uh, I don't know if anybody's going to answer your prayers after some of the things you've said.
No, it might be in God's hands right now. Anyway, so
I'm going to go with Kyle Busch as well. I think he did. I think that he showed that RCR has their packages down for super speedways. Based on
giggity.
Daytona. What did you say they do?
I said giggity.
Giggity. And my driver outside of the top 20. Ooh.
I can start naming some off if you would like to hear.
Let me. Can I see the list again, please? I'm not trying to drag the show out, but this is getting competitive, and the only reason why you're beating me by 8 points is because
Your rule.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was your rule. It wasn't my rules, your rule.
I know it. I'm going to go with Bubba Wallace outside the top 20.
Okay. Jordan Bianchi compared him to Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt on how to move the sport forward in terms of likeness. So if you like to listen to hot garbage, listen to Jordan Bianchi. That being said, it is a super speedway, and Bubba Wallace typically does well here at Talladega. So
yeah, and he backed into
let
a
me
win
put
here a
in
couple years ago.
That he did his first ever. Yeah. So you have Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, and Bubba Wallace. Well, Joe, I'm going to take 2 drivers right off the bat that I think have been tremendous at restrictor plate, tapered spacer, super speedway racing. And I'm going to go Brad Keselowski, and I'm going to go with his teammate and Chris Buescher. So I'm going to type those in real quick. And then it gets a lot tougher than that. I'm going to go Chase Elliott as well. I mean, I just don't see how you stop him here. Him and his dad pretty much own this track. I think bouncing back, I think you have to go with Kyle Busch because what we've seen, it's out of Kyle Busch to be the super speedway racer. That's not where he makes his bread, where he's made his most money, where he's done his best work. But I think that's where RCR has its best car. And I think they're more excited to leave short tracks more than anybody, even though that typically is Kyle Busch's, mainstay. So I'm going to go Kyle Busch. And then for outside of the top 20, Joe, I am going to go with a driver that had a good race last week, but not the finish. I'm going to go Front Row Motorsports, and I'm going to go with Todd Gilliland. So, and I know for a fact I did not spell that right, but I don't really care. So, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, and Todd Gilliland. I am going Ford heavy, obviously, with 2 Chevys and no Yoders because they're never having any teammates when it comes to the track. You go Larson, Elliott. Yes, sir.
And you come up with the topics for this show, and you do a great job at it, Ryan Peters.
Thank you.
I will commend you.
This is a compliment sandwich. I'm about to have a compliment here for the bun, but I can just tell this meaty burger is about to be full of shit. Let's hear it.
Yeah, it is. So, and you come up with excellent topics for the show. Never question what we talk about. I enjoy talking about them. Have a great time doing this. But we spent 15 minutes on a segment today on Hendrick Motorsports and them being the beat and having minus odds, and you pick one driver.
I did, man. It's tough. I at least I picked one driver. No, I just think that Fords have been pretty solid when it comes to restrictor plate. So I went with Ford, and then I went with the best restrictor plate driver for Chevy, and that's Chase Elliott.
I'm disappointed in you.
I'm a failure at life. Nothing that I haven't heard from both my mom and my dad, and now from my co-worker, partner, best friend, whatever you want to call yourself, Joe. Now from you.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's going to do it for the show. Now, if you would like to give us your 5 drivers in the comments, feel free to do so. That could also count when it comes to your pick for, entry into the giveaway that we will be having again. We'll be giving away a car. Got to get my Dr. Pepper bottle out of there. We're not sponsored by them. So if you would like to win a car, got a brand new one here, Kenny Irwin in the Texaco Haviland Ford to go along with the Texaco Haviland pit jacket there as well. So make sure you enter that, like and subscribe, please, if you would. It helps us, helps get this channel out to more people. We typically have been pretty close to first on a lot of different news. We'll break it down to a fan perspective and what we can do to make the sport better. And I think we've been doing a pretty solid job of that, and also predicting what we think will be news, whether it be video games, whether it be Kurt Busch, whether it be the injury timeline for Chase Elliott, whether it be the biggest penalty in NASCAR history, at least at the time. We have been on top of it here at Stuck in the Catchfence. And if you would like to stay informed and have a good laugh when boner jokes, you can do that as well.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, who doesn't like a good boner joke?
Who doesn't like a good boner joke? Sometimes they're hard to swallow, but that is nonetheless. So all good things must come to an end, like Kentucky Speedway. We are out of here until next time.